Hello and welcome to the Quiet Part podcast, hosted by Mark Hansen, where he explores the unspoken stories hidden in the quiet hours we spend at home. I'm Wendy McConnell. Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing great, Wendy. I'm doing really great. How are you?
I'm good. It's springtime. It's the chance. It's renewal. There's hope in the air. Things are good.
Yes, it's starting to warm up where I am too. But this is a really special time where it'll be 92 degrees one day and then 37 degrees the next day, and you just don't know what you don't know what to wear when you go outside.
Exactly. So you keep the coat on the hook, and you may have to grab it, or if you're lucky, you won't. Right?
Yeah. Jackets one day, shorts the next day. We got to get all of it ready.
Yes, it's definitely that time of year. So, what are we going to be talking about today, Mark?
Today, I've had meetings and conversations, and what keeps coming up is cash flow. And so today, I want to talk about cash flow. What do we think about when we think about cash flow? What do we do when we are quote unquote taking care of our cash flow? How do we handle cash flow? I want to go through pretty much kind of the nuts and bolts of what does it mean to handle the money that comes into our home.
Okay, sounds good. So, um, it's about how I can manage it responsibly.
Yeah, that's going to be an aspect of it. What I hear from people is that a big piece of cash flow is going to be budgeting. And what I hear from people around budgeting is that budgeting feels like building a house of cards in front of an oscillating fan. Like you,
Mm,
you make a lot of progress, and then here comes that fan and just blows it all over. And then you make a lot of progress, and here comes that fan again and just blows it all right over. And that makes it feel like a giant waste of time. But I
yeah,
really want to challenge that. I want us to think critically about, for a podcast episode, what do we know about cash flow? What do we know about budgeting? And what do we know about being intentional with our finances? Okay. And maybe you call it a budget, maybe you call it a spending plan, but regardless, we're talking about your ability to handle your monthly household cash flow, to take the dollars that are coming into your bank account and be intentional with them. And the first takeaway for all of our listeners is you need to hone your skill for handling your household cash flow, and you need to hone this skill because it's the foundation of your financial life. Pretty much everything is built on top of this skill. And I would say this is the number one skill that I teach people. If you go back to episodes 1 and 2, I talk about how bad I was at this specific skill. And I talk about how it took an intentional outside viewpoint for me to start counter steering out of this tailspin that I was in when it came to me and my personal finances. So I encourage anybody, head back and check out those episodes if you haven't already. But to help kick off our discussion, I thought we'd walk through a mental exercise. But here are
okay.
some informal disclaimers for the listening audience. Okay, so I'm about to use some percentages. Uh, percentages, I said that weird, but I don't want them to be taken as prescriptive. Right? I'm about to give some examples, but I don't know enough about you and your financial situation to say that these are my recommendations for you and your family. And the conundrum that I face as a professional in my realm of work, it's my licenses. The thing that shows I'm able to give the advice that I give prevent me from giving advice to situations that I just don't know the details of. And this is really important to me. This whole concept is really important, and I want other people to know. And I even talk about it in my ebook, which is titled "What the Heck Are You Thinking," which you can find a link for in the show notes. But you might find that when finance guru 123 from social media platform XYZ gives out a bunch of recommendations, you have a really hard time squeezing your budget into their framework. And this is probably because they don't know anything about you. They gave advice to a situation that they didn't know well enough, and is exactly why I pursue long lasting relationships with my clients, so I can know their situations and give them advice while taking their specific life circumstances into account. There can be a huge difference between generic advice given online by an unlicensed professional and tailored advice that you can receive in an ongoing relationship with the financial advisor. Uh, and if it's okay, I'm going to put my soapbox away now, and we can get back to the mental exercise.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. So picture in your mind as you listen. Okay, you're hosting a banquet, and you are in the back. You're in the prep kitchen preparing to serve a pie to your guests at the banquet. And you cut your pie up into 8 pieces, and you walk out to serve your banquet. which is when you discovered that there are 5 tables at your banquet laid out in front of you in like a semicircle pattern. So starting at your left, the tables are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so you head to table 1 where you find 2 guests and you give them each a piece of pie. You find 2 more guests sitting at table 2 and you give them each a piece of pie. And you repeat this at tables 3. And as you approach table 4, you see that there are 2 people sitting there, but also there's 2 more people sitting at table 5. And you look at your pie and you see that you only have 2 pieces remaining. So you serve table 4 and you walk to table 5 to apologize. You have no pie left. And this is what we would call a pie deficit. You didn't have enough pie.
Right.
Okay. Now let's do another scenario. Same banquet, 5 tables. You're in the prep kitchen and you're going to serve a pie to your guests. You cut your pie up into 12 pieces and you walk out to serve your banquet. You head to table 1 where you find 2 guests. You give them each a piece of pie. You do the same thing at tables 2, 3, and 4, giving each guest a piece of pie. And then you give the final 2 pieces, or you give 2 more pieces at table 5, and you have 2 pieces of pie left over. And this is a pie surplus, right? You have extra pie.
Right.
And we can imagine a third scenario where you cut your pie up into 10 pieces while you're in the back. You walk out and you serve 10 pieces of pie to 10 guests, and you have nothing remaining. And this is what we would call pie perfection, right? You had just enough pie. But
Okay.
my question, thinking back on these, what is the same problem with all 3 of these scenarios?
Hmm. Guessing the right amount that you need.
Guessing, exactly, right? The host of the banquet never knew how many guests were in attendance before cutting the pie. Okay. This is the financial equivalent of not having knowledge of your cash flow. And what does this look like in the real world? How does this play out in our lives? Have you ever logged into your bank account and not known what number you were going to see as the balance when you logged in? Or have you ever gotten to the end of the month and thought, where did all my money go?
Oh, like every time I log in.
And even the inverse, right? We feel like that's a bad thing, but even if you invert that, have you ever logged in at the end of the month and thought, why do I have so much money? Right? Where you think, did I forget to pay a bill or something? These are all symptoms of not having knowledge of your cash flow. So let's fix this and let's do a new scenario. You're hosting a banquet and you say to yourself, I'm going to bring the knife with me and I'm going to serve my guests as they desire. So you walk to table 1 and both of the guests that are sitting there say, thank you for the offer, but no thanks. We don't need any pie. So you
Okay.
walk to table 2 with your whole pie and both guests ask for 10% of your pie. And then you walk to table 3 with 80% of your pie remaining, and both guests ask for 10% of your pie. And so then you walk to table 4, you've got 60% of your pie remaining, and you're feeling really good. I mean, there's only 2 tables left, right?
Right.
At table 4, both guests ask for 30% of your pie. They want
Oh
the rest of
no.
your pie. And you look past them, you see table 5, and there's 2 people sitting at table 5. So you say, okay, table 4, I'm happy to give you a quarter of what's left because there are 4 guests. Okay. And as you leave table 4, you hear them grumbling about their pie. They're upset that they didn't get as much pie as you wanted to. So you get to table 5 and you've got your final 30% of your pie. And at table 5, both of the guests each want 20% of your pie. They want more than the pie that you have left. And so you fake your best smile and you serve them the pie that you have, and you know it's less than they asked for, but at least they're getting something, and hopefully they're grateful, right? And
Right.
then with no pie remaining, you stand up to turn around and you bump into somebody from table 2 who's standing right behind you, and they would like more pie. Okay.
Mm.
This whole scenario right here, right? All of that chaos, this is the equivalent of having knowledge of your cash flow, but no control. You know how many pieces of pie you need, but you still struggle to get everybody served. Okay. And what does this look like in our real lives? Have you ever like gotten a bill in the mail and when you opened it, you saw that there's a total due and you're like, how am I going to pay this? Or
Mm-hmm.
have you ever built a budget dollar for dollar and then you just watch it all come crumbling down because something unexpected happens, right? Which is, again, that oscillating fan that comes right back by and just blows your whole budget over.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, okay, listener, you're thinking, okay, great. But what are we actually talking about here? Okay. The banquet is a representation of somebody's monthly spending. Each table at the banquet is a category of spending, and the chairs at each table, they represent the individual expenses inside of that category. Okay. And if we start from the left, we have table 1, which is a special table and it's optional. Okay. I'm gonna skip it for right now. Table 2 is your saving table. This is the money that you're setting aside for your emergency fund, for your let's save a little bit each month for Christmas. We want to do the big Disney trip next year, so let's start saving for that. We've got our anniversary coming up. We want to make a down payment on a home purchase. All of that is sitting at table 2. At table 3, this is the money that you're investing. This is today you setting aside money for you of the future. We're using this month's cash flow to create a future month's cash flow. And this is how we head towards retirement. However, we define that word, we're doing it with the investing table, table 3. Okay. Table 4, that's your fixed expenses. And at a high level, I call this things that they take away from you if you stop paying, and it would
Mm.
affect your desired lifestyle. So, what would be sitting at table 4? Things like your mortgage payment, because we need a place to lay our heads, and things like the utilities for the house, because when I flip the switch, I want the lights to come on. And when I turn the handle, I want the water to come out. Okay. Things like car payments, because we need to go from A to B, and then there's going to be groceries, right? If you don't buy more groceries, you eventually run out. And a lot of people are going to say if these things were to disappear, that their lifestyle would be affected.
Mm-hmm.
Also, sitting here, it's going to be your cell phone, right? It's 20 whatever. Cell phone's going to be here, and all of our insurance types. So we've got car insurance, we've got home insurance, we've got medical insurance. The dog has an insurance policy. We've got an extra side policy for the jewelry that we have that grandma passed down, right? That's all sitting at table 4. And then table 5, these are your variable expenses, okay? And these are hot button items, but this is where the magic happens, right? Table 5 at a high level, these are things that they take away from you if you stop paying, but it's less of an effect on your lifestyle, okay? And at this table, I'm going to be putting things like Amazon and Target, expenses that are outside, above and beyond your grocery expenses, right? And I get it. It's so addicting. I think it's important to remember some 100 years ago, okay, I don't know exactly how, I'm not a history buff, but some hundreds of years ago, a king of the largest nation would have waited months for a specialist to come back from a far off land who had gone to source an in season berry. And now we just same day delivery that stuff from Amazon, right? And we
Yeah.
do it all the time. Like you don't even have to click anymore. You just like they got the one click buy thing. You just like swipe your
Yeah.
thumb and you just bought something, right?
Exactly. Exactly. It's too easy. And I got to tell you, Mark, as a little aside, you've heard of dry January. I've done dry Amazon March. I
Oh,
am
that's
not
nice.
allowing myself to order from Amazon for the entire month.
That is, I have been talking to my clients about a concept very similar to that, where you maybe try to do that every month, and then at the
Mhm.
end of the month, you've got everything in your basket, and then you say, okay, I've got X dollars to spend, and then you start picking from the basket because like they give us that basket thing
Yeah.
on the Amazon website. It's not a basket; it's just a place that we park stuff for 45 seconds before we buy it, right?
Exactly.
So I'm encouraging people to use the basket like a true basket. Like move around the store, hold it for a little bit, maybe put some stuff back on the shelves. Yeah, I could totally lean into that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
These are some more of the hot button items here at table 5. If I jump back into it, streaming services, right? You had
Mm.
Netflix, but then The Office moved over to Peacock, so now you have both. And Hulu, well, they were streaming Seinfeld, but now that moved over to Netflix, and you never went back and canceled Hulu, so now you've got those two. And Friends, well, that was on Netflix too, but then it went over to HBO Max, which you didn't even know existed, but you signed up really fast because they had a special sign up price. And through this continued insanity process, you now own like every streaming service that there is. All of
Yeah.
those things are sitting at table 5. Also at table 5 is going to be eating out, right? Again, above and beyond your grocery purchases. Okay. And what really blows my mind is at table 5, and I don't mean to laugh. I don't mean to laugh, but at table 5, we find things like DoorDash, which as a company needs a new slogan, because whenever somebody says DoorDash, I think, oh, you mean pay twice as much for you to deliver me my food cold or wrong or both, right? It's like it's absolutely crazy. I have an example of table 5 items being less of an effect on your lifestyle. Wendy, we've had a couple of meetings and we've spent some time together. Have you ever heard me talk about my steakhouse conundrum?
Your steakhouse conundrum. Yes, I believe I did.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to dive into. I'm going to share it with the podcast audience here because for our anniversary, my wife and I, we would go and we'd have a recurring date night at the best steakhouse in town. So every year for our anniversary, we'd go and we did it up. Right, appetizers, bottle of wine, steaks from the top section of the menu because that's where the best cuts are.
Of
Two
course.
sides, why not three? Right? Oh, you can put crab meat on top of my steak. Let's do that. We are here to celebrate our marriage. And the conundrum starts right here, right? Because I like my steaks cooked medium rare, but more on the rare side than on the medium side. And like I don't want my steak to still be mooing when they bring it out, but
Right.
just like a blink past that, that is perfect for me. Okay. And my wife, she actually doesn't really enjoy steak. She likes to eat salmon, which most steakhouses have amazing salmon, right? And she likes to typically get this on a salad. So what was happening is we'd sit down, we order our meal, they make it, and it comes out. And the first thing that they ask you to do at the steakhouse is cut directly into the center of your steak to see if it's been cooked the right way. But as far as I know, that's like eating steak 101, right? You don't cut directly into the middle of the steak because that lets all the juice comes out. The steak hasn't rested
Exactly.
appropriately, right? And secondly, I realized it didn't matter. It didn't even make sense to get upset about the first thing because okay, I cut into the steak and it's cooked perfect. Well, then I've just ruined my steak because all the juice has run out because I cut straight in the middle. The other option is I cut into my steak and it's too well done. Well, now they want to take it back because it's a nice steak from the nice part of the menu. They want to take it back and they want to cook me a new steak. And then what that really means is now for my anniversary, I get to watch my wife eat a salad. And about the
Oh,
time she's done, they bring me my steak, and then she can watch me eat my steak. And just
right.
what a date night, right? What a date
Yeah.
night. So I figured I'm just not going to check. I'm just not going to check the steak. I'm not going to risk cutting into the steak. And then year after year, my steaks kept coming out overcooked. They were too done. And if you overcook my McBurger, whatever, it was $1 and change. You start overcooking my nice steak from the nice section of the menu at the nice steakhouse in the nice part of town. I mean, ouch, right? At that point, I'd rather just go to Chick-fil-A and chow down on a 12 count and a large fry,
Okay.
right? And this whole thing, that whole silly story, is an example of how this is a lesser effect on my lifestyle because I'm doing a more expensive thing or an expensive version of a thing. As in, if I go to the fancy steakhouse, I get a meal. If I go to Chick-fil-A, I get a meal. If I cook at home, I get a meal. But each of those three things costs a different amount of money. And that's really what table 5 is. Okay? And that's how I want people to think about table 5. There are a lot of things that can be seated at tables 4 and table 5. The overall theme is that um, we're paying things in a specific order. And what I mean is at some point you might be running out of money and what are you going to cut out? You might start cutting out doing the thing the more expensive way because the money
Okay.
that you save can't also be invested. And the money that you invest can't also be spent on groceries and a car payment. And the car payment money can't be spent on your streaming services. Right? Through this process, with this framework, we're trying to give every dollar a job sequentially and intentionally. Okay. And if you want, I think we'll just dive into like what does that look like. Okay. So let's walk
Okay.
through a final scenario. You say to yourself, I'm going to bring the knife with me and I'm going to serve my guests as I desire. So you walk to table 1 and both guests are sitting there and they say, no thanks, no pie for us. And then, now table 1, that's your generosity table. This is your giving. And it's optional. That's why I skipped it earlier. Some people have this table in their plan and some people don't. But in this scenario, let's pretend like it's important to you and it is there. So you tell table 1, I insist, and you slice off 10% of your pie. You've got 90% left. You
Okay.
walk to table 2, your saving table. You slice off 10% of your pie. You've got 80% left. You walk to table 3, your investing table. You slice off 15% of your pie and you've got 65% left. You go to table 4, your fixed expenses, and you've got 50% of your pie. But at table 4, those people that were grumbling a couple scenarios ago, you ask them to see their way out the door. They are now happy guests sitting here, and you are happy to serve them. You give
Okay.
table 4 50% of your pie, and you've got 15% left. And when you get to table 5, you're about to slide table 5, your variable expenses, the last 15% of your pie, when somebody walks up from table 2 and they would like more pie. And so you decide, I'm gonna cut this. I'm gonna give 10% of my pie to table five, and I'm gonna give 5% more to table two. And this right here, this is control of your household cash flow. You're directing who to sit where, and you're asking people to leave if needed. Right. And maybe
Okay.
now, right? Maybe right now the thought is, okay, great. My banquet sounds really, really bad. How do I make it better? Right. Have any of those thoughts popped up?
Yeah, and, it's sometimes, you just have to do Chick-fil-A instead of the steakhouse, but yeah, how do we make this more manageable?
Yeah. Okay. So if we have a situation and we're trying to make some improvements, these are loose rules of how I want the numbers to interact with each other. Okay. And the rules are loose because there's two components to this whole exercise. There's the spreadsheet where I punch everything in into a big fancy calculator and I deliver you the exact answer down to the fifth decimal point. And then there's the part where we close the laptop, we shut down the Excel, and we talk like real people about what you want your life to be like today, tomorrow, in the near future, in the far future. You have to be bought in to your spending plan. I can't force mine on you. And just because a calculator gives a result or an influencer gives a scenario doesn't mean that's the right thing for you. Okay, so the loose rules that I have is the amount that you are saving at table two, it's going to oscillate up and down, and that depends on what your financial situation looks like. Right? Do you have a fully funded emergency fund, or are you just starting out? Are we trying to amortize upcoming big expenses by saving a little bit each month, or do we not have any big expenses that are coming up? The amount headed towards investing depends on your overall strategy, which doesn't mean your actual investments, but this is more along the lines of, are you wanting to invest and save for retirement heavily upfront and hope that the effects of compound interest play out in your favor on the back end? Or do you want to save a similar amount every month all the way up until retirement? Or do you need to or want to delay investing altogether for one reason or another and play some version of catch up in the coming years? These are all options that can be chosen. And these are all things that you can talk to your financial advisor about, as in, how do I make this? How do I do this strategy? How do I pick option two? How do I pick option three? What does it look like? Right? Some more loose rules. Try not to be putting more money into depreciating assets, right? Your average car payment, than
Mm,
you are into investing accounts. Try to have that kind of a balance. And a caveat is, well, if you've already saved sufficiently for retirement, then we might be able to bring in a car payment and it wouldn't be detrimental to your financial situation. Try to limit your total housing expenses to 30% of your monthly take home pay. But again, here's a caveat, right? Lives are different. A family of five that needs a home office and a room to do homeschool and wants a few acres to live on because that's where they want to raise their family. They want to have a garden. Well, that family of five might have to bend this rule a little bit as compared to a family of five where both parents leave the home to go do some work at office jobs while the kids head off to school somewhere.
right.
You know, if we lump debt together, right? So including your home, total debt, I'd like that to be less than 40% of your take home pay. So again, the more you spend on the home, the less additional debt obligations you can take on and bear when it comes to your finances. And your total fixed costs, I want that to max out between 55 and 60%. There's some flexibility here, but don't forget that we're cutting pieces of the same pie. And if you give the pie to table two, you can't give it to table three. And if table four gets it, table five can't get it. We got to remember that as we work through here. And some
Okay.
frameworks for making these changes, right? You might find it more helpful to fix the big issues than trying to tie together a couple dozen smaller ones. As in, maybe you keep buying Starbucks, but we get real serious about your house and your cars. When you're thinking about your house, your mortgage, do you need your whole house? Do you need more house? Have a genuine conversation with your spouse around your needs to have air conditioned square feet around you. Okay. When we
Okay.
think about cars, right? A car gets you from A to B. We call that transportation. And reliable transportation can cost less than $10,000 if you shop around. It might not be pretty, but it will be transportation. Okay. If
Yes.
you are spending more than that, you are buying more than transportation. We have to be honest with ourselves about that, right? And that is an intentional reallocation of money. It is a decision that you've made, and you need to remember that those dollars can only be spent one time. And that car, we get swept up in these car payments. I mean, in car purchases. I hear it all the time. Oh, this it was an emotional car purchase, right? That car isn't going to bring you anything. You might be all alone in your car, right? Just you and your car payment hanging out. And
Mm,
we gotta remember that the car doesn't deliver us anything above and beyond transportation. Okay, and then the larger category of debt. Debt is it's a weight strapped around your ankle while you're trying to tread water. It's the toddler that keeps walking by and taking your stack of cards while you're trying to build your house. Okay, some people have a small weight, some people have a big weight. Some people are really good at treading water. Some people aren't good swimmers, right? These are all nuances and variables that we have to take into consideration because they're specific to you, the listener, and you trying to put your budget together. You know,
right.
I'm not 100% aligned with Dave Ramsey. I think that the emergency fund should be prioritized a little higher than he does. I think like fully paying off your consumer debt happens alongside building your emergency fund. It's small differences, right? I'm not saying there's nothing good coming out of his platform, but something that he says that I want people to think about is what if you free up a seat at table 4 because your car payment no longer sits there? What if you
Mm,
free up a seat at table 4 because your mortgage is paid off? What if you free up seats at your banquet because your student loans, your credit cards, your buy now, pay later? What if all of that stuff is paid off and those seats are no longer full? What if you walk out to serve your banquet and table 4 is pretty much empty? How much less pie do you need to serve at your banquet? And what would you be able to do with the time that you gain back now that you don't have to make so much pie? You know,
mm.
when you think about your banquet, who do you need to ask to leave your banquet so that somebody else can sit down? And who is at your banquet eating more pie than you want them to? Who do you need to leave your banquet so you have enough pie to serve everyone else? And this isn't a, I think we maybe default to like, oh, I'll just go to the store and I'll get more pie, right? But then you're breaking the framework of this, right? We can't just go to the store and get more pie. We have to make choices, and these choices are taking us along a spectrum from, I call it like financial folly to financial maturity. We are maturing in our decision making process as it pertains to our finances. And so those are some frameworks. And then I've got a couple hard truths. Okay. Hard truths. When you sit down to do this, you can't have a victim mentality. Maybe you have made some mistakes. That is okay.
Yeah.
That is okay. But let's stop making mistakes. Let's fix up the boo boos that we already have before we start giving ourselves more. And so, sometimes we get to a moment like this and people are really excited, but they don't know what do I do next? And it just stop, stop. You're going too far. Taking control of your cash flow is like getting in the pool. It does not matter what side you jump in, right? All you need to do is get in the pool. If you're super nervous, yes, you can use the steps, but get in the pool. Start somewhere, take some action, okay? And then this is maybe a warning. When you start this journey, it can feel like a daunting project to take control of your cash flow. And it can feel like a daunting project to get everything figured out only to realize you solved 80% of the problem, not 100%. And then to get it all figured out and a new problem arises. And then you get it all figured out and 6 months later something changes. And you get it all figured out and 12 months later you realize you forgot to plan for an upcoming expense. And
Ugh.
that right there, that I just heard it, right? You know what just happened when you made that noise? You know what that was?
It was
That was
despair.
the oscillating fan just came right back by and blew over your house of cards.
Yes.
Okay? We don't have perfect control. And we cannot plan for every single instance. Even if your budgeting software lets you make sinking funds for your sinking funds, we don't have perfect control.
Mm, okay. So what you've but basically done is made me very hungry for pie, Mark.
Yeah. So I think what do we do with all this information, right? Maybe you're hungry for pie, but what do we do with all of this information?
Yeah.
This is your homework. If you're listening to this is your homework. Do this for your finances. Draw it out. Label the tables. Draw some chairs. Label the chairs. The hard part can be sitting down and going through the exercise, but part of why it feels hard is because you might not realize the full extent of the exercise. What you will come across is you will maybe sequentially realize you're not only serving pie, you're not only cutting the pie into pieces, You're not only cutting the pie into appropriately sized pieces, you are not only prioritizing the tables, you are cutting intentionally sized pieces out of a finite pie as you serve individual prioritized chairs at overall prioritized tables. And you can't copy someone else's homework. Your life is yours. And if you want to try to be in control of your finances, you have to do your homework. Okay. And let's be honest. Okay. Let's be really honest. Do I want to do this stuff? Sitting here today, do I want to put money away for the future? Probably not. Do I want to make smart decisions with my money? Probably not. Do I want to eat this really healthy chicken dish that we cooked at home while we meal prepped on a Sunday afternoon? No. No, I want to go to Chick-fil-A.
It's
I
not
want to spend some
fun.
money. I want to have fun. I want to take my wife to the beach, and when we get back, I want to take her to the beach again. I want a 72 Chevy C10 short bed, right? But
Well,
I
that
got
is
three
very specific, Mark.
very specific. In case you missed it, I want a 72 Chevy C10 short bed.
Is that a truck?
That is a truck.
Okay.
Okay. Here's the problem. I got 3 kids, and they're all in car seats. There's only 3 seats in that truck. And
Yeah.
I can't pick which 2 kids I'd take with me, right?
Well, you could, but you wouldn't be a great
Yeah.
dad.
Right. It wouldn't make a lot of sense for me to have that truck. Okay, fine,
Exactly.
fine. I can set that aside. But here's what do I really want? What do I want more than the beach? What do I want more than endless Chick-fil-A? As good as that sounds. I'm 35, sitting here right now recording this, and what I want more than all of that is I want to play with my grandkids whenever they come. Okay, our oldest is 5 right now, so I understand that I'm looking way down the road.
Right.
I want to get on the ground and I want to play with my grandkids and I want to read them stories and I want them to know me and I want to know them and I want to be a big part of their life. And the question is, this is what rattles around in my brain when I feel compelled to go out and swipe some plastic or swipe my thumb. Can I do that? Can I do what I just said after making a lifetime of foolish decisions or a lifetime of intentional decisions? Okay.
Mm.
I think I know which one will at least get me a little bit closer to the thing that I want the most. But here's a question for you. What do you want the most? Do you want another new car? Do you want a bigger house? Do you want insert consumer trend right here? Or do you want something else more than that?
Yeah. Food for thought. Pie for thought.
Lots of pie, lots of food for thought. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. And that's something that's part of the homework is something everybody has to decide for themselves.
Absolutely. Yes, I think that's a critical piece is you and your spouse, whoever's involved in the financial decisions, you have to make these decisions. You have to come to your own conclusions. You can't copy someone else's homework.
Okay. So, Mark, if somebody wants to contact you about how they can make the right size pie for the banquet, how do they get in touch?
All the contact info is going to be in the show notes. I encourage people to you go to the website, read the website, download the ebook, read the ebook. Those are going to be great ways to educate yourself around who is Mark and what does he talk about and how does he talk about it? What does Mark think is important? And if you resonate with any of that, then on my website you can also find a place to schedule a meeting with me. We can sit down, we can start having a conversation, and those are all things that you can do that don't cost you a dime. You can get as far into this process as you want, but all of those links are going to be in the show notes.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate the time.
Absolutely. This was a lot of fun, Wendy. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for listening today. Please like, follow, and share this podcast with your friends. Until next time.